Okay, sorry, man. All right, we're going to have a surprise presentation from Craig Leabhart, burner email accounts for deeper phishing investigations. So put your hands together for Craig.
Is that good? All right, cool. So Zelfik's going to present right after me. This is not a terribly long presentation, but we thought we'd throw one in here real fast. So one of the things I do at work a lot is look at phishing emails and stuff like that. So we're going to kind of talk about something that helps me with this. Now, I threw this slide in here specifically for Brandon because he said we were going to be rated R, and last time nobody said fuck. So who the fuck am I? Politically jaded, I used to work in politics and nonprofits. I do not anymore, but I have lots of horror stories I can tell if we want to have a drink later or something. Big time geek. So it was really funny. The other day on Twitter, I saw somebody talking about how it was one of those, I don't know who needs to hear this, but you're not a Viking. And I was like, but my Twitter bio says I'm a Viking. But I am really into Viking stuff, so we can also geek out about that if you're interested. Otherwise, my day job is security. I work on the operations side of the security team, so doing a lot of remediations, writing detections, slapping hands for running malware, that kind of cool stuff. So what do I mean by burner account? So I found in my work trying to look at phishing kits and stuff like that and trying to determine if, user X did, the bad, how can I determine for sure like what would have happened if they did so that I can make sure that they didn't? Some people have big fancy proxies. That can help a lot with that. Some people don't. So for people that don't necessarily have all those big fancy tools, that'll give them that kind of level of visibility to see exactly what URLs they hit and exactly what packets went where and stuff like that. This is a very simple solution that I found to really help with that. So basically what it is, it's an email that you use for no other purpose except giving it to the bad guys so you can see what they do so that you know how to know if somebody did something that they shouldn't have done. And so like I said, that's the whole point of this. You're trying to get those indicators of compromise so you can see exactly what is going on. And sometimes it really I think is fascinating to kind of see that behind the scenes on what the phishing kit is doing when a lot of times you don't have access to that phishing kit to know what that code and stuff is. So some things to keep in mind. So keep in mind, remember, you're going to be giving your email to bad guys, people that want to profit from having your email. So you don't want to necessarily give them, like, say, your Mediacom IP address. So when I do this, I'm always making sure I'm using a VPN or a proxy or some other way of anonymizing that traffic. So when they see me hit their website and give them my credentials, it's not my IP that they can trace back to me. Another thing, don't use your real name when you sign up for these emails. There's some servers and providers that make it a lot easier to create these throwaway fake accounts than others. And I'll talk about that here in just a second. But otherwise, the other thing to do is every time you do this, you want to make sure you clear out any sort of evidence or anything like that left over from the last time you did it. So, if I gave my phishing, my email, my credentials to an attacker today, obviously I'm going to want to reset my password and change things like that in case I want to use that same account to do it again tomorrow. And what I would hate to do is have all sorts of fun emails and stuff in that inbox for those new people to get, unless that's what you're going for. So you could, for example, seed your inbox with a whole bunch of juicy things like maybe invoices and emails to other fake emails just to see like if anybody else gets fun emails and stuff like that. But that's a little beyond what I have time to do every day. So Microsoft Outlook is the easiest one. Also, it's a really, really big target. So that's primarily what I use. Most of the phishing emails I see every day are Microsoft M365 oriented. And Outlook, Hotmail or Outlook.com are actually really, really nice in that they don't really require anything from you. You can just create 1 million of these tonight, and they'll just let you. So this is my fake one. I redacted my stuff just so that Then if somebody looks at this later, they won't be like, that's the guy who keeps messing with my phishing forms. But basically, yeah, so it's fake birth date, fake country, fake name, obviously fake email. And then if it asks you for recovery information, use another fake account. So I have a Gmail account that I can use that's also fake as my recovery for my Outlook account if I need it. Again, when you're checking to make sure you don't have anything you don't want in there, there's a lot of places to check. A lot of places people don't think about. So for example, with Outlook, you've got your inbox, that's pretty normal. You've got your sent items, people sometimes forget that. You've got your deleted items, but did you know there's also a deleted? So if you want to actually delete your emails, you have to delete them twice. Just some other notes about how I tend to do this, just to make sure that the bad guys don't trace it back to me, is I like to use Flare VM. I have a VPN on my host system, and then I use a NAT that goes out that VPN IP. And then I like to personally run Fiddler while I'm doing this also, so then I can do SSL decryption and see exactly what's going on and what's going where. So that way you know exactly like which domain your password got posted to, fun stuff like that. All right, so get in losers, we're gonna go get phished. So I did not an actual demo here, but I took a lot of screenshots. So this is a real phishing email. Somebody sent this project file. They would like you to kindly please go ahead and open it. I promise it's safe, because that's what every business person says on their phishing emails. So when they clicked on it, you get this nice site, which looks kind of like a Microsoft login. It's got this kind of blurry thing in the background, really enticing for someone who maybe doesn't know what they're doing. Oh, well, maybe if I type in my stuff, it'll unblur it or something. You'll notice if you can see it, this is actually hosted in an S3 bucket, so not a Microsoft website. And, oh no, I typed my password wrong. What should I do? I mean, obviously I should either re-enter it, or I should just delete the email and not tell security and pretend like nothing happened, right? But if you press F12 while you're doing this and hack your website, or just use Fiddler or something like that, you can see exactly where it's posting. So in this particular case, it posted to this kidsweartown.com. I don't know what that is. It could be completely made up. Could be a legitimate, kids clothing company that got, compromised or something. Who knows? The important thing is, as you can see down there, they got my username and my password. And so this is where the fun part of having this burner email account comes in. So I can flip back over and look in that account and see, oh yeah, 11 minutes ago, somebody from Germany tried to do an Imap sync of everything in my inbox. I'm not in Germany. I don't remember where my IP was at the time, but it was in Germany. But this way you can kind of see. So sometimes credential harvesting, it's literally they just want your passwords, and then somebody's going to go back later, maybe an hour, maybe a day later, and just try it, see if it still works. But sometimes you find stuff like this, which is really, really interesting because, if I had been a real user and I didn't have Imap syncing disabled, in my M365 environment or something like that, this person could get their entire inbox. Oh, shucks. All right, so just a few other things to kind of keep in mind. You're probably going to want more than one burner account. I actually have a few, and I kind of cycle through them. And then the other thing I do is I kind of change up my VPN exit nodes. That way it's not always the same IP and not always the same email. Just because, if you do this enough, chances are you're going to run into some of the same criminal gangs, over and over again. So maybe you don't want them to know that it's that same person that's messing with their phishing site again. And I think that is it. Any questions? Yes? Yep. Yeah, so with Gmail, one of the reasons I don't do a lot with Gmail is because they require a phone number. I haven't tried it, but I I would be curious to know, and I've wanted to try it and I haven't tried it yet, whether or not Gmail is smart enough to know if you use another Google Voice phone number, if it would recognize that or not. So that is the first thing I would try. I don't know if it'll work because they might be smart enough to know, but you could create, a Google account with your real phone number, but then add a Google Voice phone number to it, and then use the Google Voice phone number for the other one. Cool. Yep, so he said it used to work where you could use a Google Voice number to do that with another Google account. The other thing he suggested is after you've added some other form of MFA, so like a Google Authenticator app, for example, he says that you can delete the phone number from your Google account so it's no longer tied to it. Any other questions? I hope I look good in this picture. Do I look all right? Say that again, sorry. So he asked about, phishing kits that essentially, if I understood correctly, that recognize that they hadn't sent this to you, so maybe the kit ends and it doesn't let you get to the credential submission or something like that. Is that right? Is that what you're thinking? Yeah, so you see those every once in a while, but more often what I see is they record the IP address that you use. So say you submit it once, then you go back to do it again because maybe you missed something, maybe you forgot to turn on Fiddler and you wanted that traffic or something. And then you do it again and you get redirected to some completely benign website. Usually what I found that they're doing is they're just recording the IP address of the people that have submitted. So if you just change your exit node, usually you can get that to trigger again. Now that becomes really important to think about in the context of using like a commercial sandbox. So different sandboxes sometimes will have the same IP exits that they're using for like all of their customers. And so I find that a lot with malware also, where I'll go to try to get a payload and it won't work for me, and it's just because somebody else happened to use the same malware in that same sandbox, and if I switch it to a different exit node, usually I can get it. But yes, I have seen that where it'll want the actual email, and in that case, you're kind of stuck. Yeah. Yes. How does? Yeah. So the question was, how does Flare VM work compared to some of the others? So Flare VM, for people that aren't familiar, it was created originally by, and I believe it's still maintained by, the Flare team, the Flare Mandiant team. I know they've split, and I don't know who's who anymore, or how formal that is, and if it's done or not. But Flare VM, essentially what it is it's a package of scripts that you can run on a Windows 10 VM. So you actually have to have a Windows 10 VM already, either Windows 7 or Windows 10. And then you download their packages, and you run a PowerShell script. It usually takes a while. For me, I think it takes like 2 hours or so. But when it's all done, it kind of installs a whole host of tools, most of which I've never even used. But it installs almost everything that I like to use, for both malware analysis, looking at websites, a lot of different things. So it's a really cool and easy way to basically kind of like get all those tools that you would use to manually tinker. Now the biggest difference between that and like a commercial sandbox and stuff like that is it's not going to have all that automated reporting. So like if you're used to using like Cuckoo or any.run, Threat Grid from Cisco, anything like that, those will spit out a really nice report that says, here's everything that happened, here's all the DNS calls, all the, the HTTP connections, blah, blah, blah. Flare VM doesn't just do that for you. You have to turn on things like, for example, that's why I turned on Fiddler when I was doing mine. But I really like it. I use Flare VM a lot, every day, really. Any other questions? Otherwise, we are going to have one more speaker. So Zelfix, if you're ready, we'll get you plugged in.